Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Over the next 5 years, millions of federal and state dollars are being dedicated to improve water quality in Lake Champlain. The money will target areas with the highest degree of water quality impairment, including watersheds impacted by agriculture. The Agricultural Water Quality Partnership Plan for Lake Champlain features the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service and University of Vermont Extension. To find out more about the plan for Lake Champlain, I'm joined by Vicki Drew. Vicki is the state conservationist for Vermont with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. Also with me is Dan Lerner. Dan is the Associate Dean of UVM Extension. Thanks so much for being with us today. Vicki, let's start with a little background on the NRCS and what assistance that you offer to farmers and private landowners.
Our agency helps private landowners address their natural resource concerns. Our agency was founded in 1935 and was originally named the Soil Conservation Service. That was after the Dust Bowl that everybody's heard about that swept the country. It was absolutely a catastrophic event for this nation and the security of our nation's food supply. So Congress established our agency in 1935, really focused on soil erosion and erosion control. However, in 1994, our agency's name changed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service to better reflect the broader mission that we have. Our mission is really very simple. It's helping people help the land. And we do that by providing both technical and financial assistance to private landowners. Unlike other public and federal agencies that are primarily focused on public lands, our role is one of working with private landowners, both farmers and forest landowners, to address their natural resource concerns. We have expertise in soil conservation, engineering, biology, forestry, a whole host of areas, and we provide assistance to farmers on erosion control and water quality, as well as things like improving pollinator habitat or wildlife habitat in the woods. And here in Vermont, our primary focus is on water quality, especially in Lake Champlain. We also offer financial assistance through various programs. The largest program that is available to farmers here in Vermont is called the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP.
And tell us a little bit about how that works, how EQIP works.
So EQIP is a competitive program. Farmers can apply at any time of the year, and their applications are ranked based on the environmental benefits to be achieved in combination with the type of practices that they're going to install, as well as the location. And the location is important because, again, we want to target those funds to those areas most in need.
And there are actually 4 target areas, as I understand it?
Well, this year we're going to be using a new approach to distribute our EQIP dollars. Starting in the federal fiscal year of 2016, which will be starting this October, we will be prioritizing 4 watersheds across the Lake Champlain Basin. 3 are actually located in Franklin County, and 1 is located in the southwestern area of Addison County. And these areas were identified because water quality is most impaired and there's a great public need. The public is very concerned about water quality in these areas, and so we want to use our resources in a much more targeted fashion going forward to ensure that we can see more measurable improvements more quickly than we would having spread out the resources across the Lake Champlain Basin.
So you think by targeting these key places, you'll have a better bang for the buck, for lack of a better phrase.
Exactly. So research has shown that ratcheting down into a smaller watershed and really focusing and prioritizing in very strategic locations can generally show improvements more rapidly than they would otherwise. And we really want the farmers to benefit from this because many of them are already doing great conservation work out there, but the water quality data just hasn't reflected that because our work has been widespread across the state. And in this way, by targeting, we feel like we will be able to demonstrate those improvements and be accountable for the funds that we're using.
Now, Dan, what's the role of UVM Extension in helping improve water quality in Lake Champlain?
Well, UVM Extension, as you know, is an educational organization, and we're statewide, but we're able to offer local expertise all over the state of Vermont. And we provide research and education and technical assistance to work directly as sort of boots on the ground with farmers, with landowners, helping them access programs like the ones that Vicki has described, and helping them take the science that the university is able to generate through its research engine around conservation and water quality and put that to work in the fields, literally in the fields, in different parts of the state.
And you also, too, have connections already to a lot of the farmers.
Absolutely. We work with farmers year-round and have for many, many, many years on a variety of issues. And water quality is very, very important. It's not a new issue, but we're all sort of growing in our appreciation for just how important it is to Vermont.
Now, Secretary Vilsack visited Vermont at the end of last summer and pledged commitment to help NRCS and partners like Extension improve water quality in Lake Champlain. How is that being accomplished, Vicki?
So yes, Secretary Vilsack was here last August and basically provided a renewed commitment. We've been working right along with our work on water quality issues with Lake Champlain, but the Secretary's visit was really about redoubling our efforts, taking a closer look at how we do our work and how our money is spent. And so as a result of that, we are going to be using this new targeted approach that we just discussed. This announcement will provide about $8 to $10 million toward annually for the next 5 years.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but it does go fast. Farmers can receive up to $450,000 apiece over the life of the Farm Bill. And so when you start adding that amount up, it does tend to go quickly. So the $8 to $10 million will be available to producers each year for the next 5 years. Roughly 75% of that will be focused on Lake Champlain. The rest of it will be used in other areas of the state.
And so you talk a little bit about changing behaviors as opposed to, really the money. It's really looking at the bigger picture. I mean, the funding obviously is important, but changing behaviors is...
Absolutely, and we often get stuck in this rut of talking about the money and thinking that the money is where it's at. And the money is important because a lot of these practices require an investment on the part of the farm, and they often don't have the extra cash on hand to install what can be very expensive manure management practices. A waste storage structure, a manure pit, can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And our cost share is limited to up to 75% of the typical cost. So there's always an out-of-pocket cost on the part of the farm. Some of the practices, however, like cover crops and conservation tillage, have long-term benefits for the producer and can actually realize and result in a higher level of production and productivity on the farm. So it's helping those landowners understand that sometimes the short-term losses, giving up land, taking land out of production to put in a conservation practice, will result in long-term gains in terms of improved soil health.
And that's also where UVM Extension comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a variety of, a range of people who are working on this, some of whom I think have been on the show with you, Judy, Heather Darby, Jeff Carter, maybe Mark Cannella, who work with farmers and landowners on the kind of things that Vicki is talking about and helping them understand those two pieces of the pie. One, of course, is the conservation issue, which is very important, but there's also the bit about having a viable and financially successful farm, and improving soil health is going to do both of those things at the same time. So it's our job to work with farmers and landowners to do that, and we do it in a variety of ways. And that could include teaching them about cover cropping and helping them get those fields established, livestock exclusion, manure management, building grass waterways, and nutrient management planning. This is all within our wheelhouse, and it's important for us to be able to work with Vicki in partnership and deal with the farmers right where they are and seeing how to apply these techniques right there on their land.
And it's interesting too because farmers are cautious people usually, and so it takes the time for them to sort of embrace some of these ideas, and seeing another farmer do it and be successful is often key to that.
It often is, and there's also the matter of building relationships over time. As you asked a few moments ago, we work with farmers again and again and again, and as does NRCS and its local offices. And then again, part of that is helping farmers understand that as they work to be stewards of the land and protect the environment, they are also enhancing their own financial viability. Farms are businesses, of course, and we want to see those be successful. Now,
so Vicki, along the $8 to $10 million a year for 5 years, what other funding is dedicated to improving Lake Champlain?
Well, through USDA NRCS, this past January, the state of Vermont was awarded another a $16 million grant, in addition to the $8 to $10 million that we are receiving annually through our regular programs. This money was provided through a new program that was authorized in the 2014 Farm Bill, and I'd just like to say thank you to our congressional delegation for having the wisdom to think about this new program called the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, or RCPP. And RCPP works in concert with local partners, and partners basically submit proposals for work that they'd like to see done, and that's excuse me, what the state of Vermont did. In this case, it was the second highest grant provided nationwide under this new program. And so our chief, Jason Weller, was here in January to make the announcement, and then we had a follow-up kickoff meeting in April with the governor to say that the agreement had been signed and we were ready to go. The $16 million will be focused on improving water quality on conserved farms, as well as erosion control on forest roads and trails, and wetlands restoration on land that was previously used for agriculture.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty comprehensive.
It is. And in addition to the $16 million grant, there was a second RCPP grant awarded in Vermont to the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts to provide nutrient management planning in cooperation with Cooperative Extension to small farms.
So how will each of your organizations track the success and illustrate the benefits of some of the conservation measures?
Well, I think the important thing is to think about how we are newly focused on a targeted approach. And so we're going to start by targeting our resources in these 4 high priority watersheds, and then look at water quality data in those watersheds to determine how effective we've been and whether or not we're actually seeing the improvements that we expect to see. In addition to that, we're going to be working very closely with our partners, in particular Extension, to do watershed level planning on these 4 watersheds that basically looks at what needs to be done, where it needs to be done, how quickly can we get there, and who can do what part of that action strategy. And so Extension will have a role, NRCS will have a role, and there will be other partners as well involved in this process. Mm-hmm. So at the end of this 5-year process, we really hope that we can look back and say that this approach achieved the results that we were all looking for, with measurable improvements in water quality in those tributaries.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think this is one of the reasons why our partnership works very well, because Extension takes very much the same approach to addressing these kinds of concerns. We align our resources to the needs that we can see. We focus on delivering programs that are going to have impact, and those impacts need to be something that we can measure. So we have indicators of success, whether it's acres of conserved land or improved yield on fields, whatever it is. We're very focused on the actual demonstration of impact.
Mm-hmm. And so talk a little bit, Vicki, about the 80-20 rule, because I think this is really interesting.
Yeah, so what we have found in sort of the 80-20 rule, that you spend 80% of your time working on 20% of your problems, right? And so what research has shown, this actually plays out in the landscape. Approximately 80% of the phosphorus losses are coming from about 20% of the landscape. We call these areas critical source areas, and we have already prioritized our funds to these critical source areas, particularly in the northern part of the state, in the Missisquoi Bay watershed. We've widened that approach to do it statewide over the last couple of years. And with these 4 watersheds, we will again be prioritizing the funding that is dedicated to these 4 watersheds to those critical source areas, mm-hmm. so that we use our funds as efficiently as possible and get our biggest bang for the buck, as you mentioned earlier.
And so, once again, how do farmers become involved in this? Is it something that they have to learn about by themselves? Is it something that they're educated about? And then how do they implement the grant process? Well,
we're all working together to do outreach, and that's part of what this program is about today, is to really let producers know that there's resources available to them to address these issues. And so we work together to host a variety of outreach events, whether it's demonstration days or field trials, what have you, doing work on our web and our Twitter accounts and things like that, just to get the word out. We know farmers probably aren't on Twitter every day, but we hope that they're watching across the fence at lunch and learning about these programs.
And so what's the best way for Vermonters to learn more about the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service?
Well, one of the ways is to go to our website at vt.usda.nrcs. Excuse me, I think I got that backwards. vt.nrcs.usda.gov. I'm not used to actually talking about our website. I usually just point to it. Certainly they can call any of our 11 offices around the state. We have offices in almost every county. Oftentimes we're even co-located with Extension.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, if folks have questions for Extension?
They can go to uvm.edu/extension.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. It's a fascinating program, and as you said, it sounds like a lot of money, but it goes quickly.
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.